Hello, I'm Ollie and this is CriminOlly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, some horror, a suspense classic and some wonderful trash. It's my weekly wrap-up. So welcome to my first proper video for a while. I have been a little under the weather recently and I'm still a little under the weather, so if I sound a bit croaky in this video, apologies for that. But yes, this will be my weekly wrap up for the last week, and that is a week that I've largely spent in bed. I haven't been feeling well at all. I'm not sure if what I had was COVID or flu or what have you, but it definitely knocked me out and did impact my reading as well. There were a few days when I was genuinely worried that I was falling into a reading slump. I tried 3 or 4 books on the trot and just couldn't get on with any of them. Nothing to do with the books, I think, just my state of mind at the time. But I did manage to drag myself out of it. So let me talk to you about the 2 books I read before falling into that slump, and then the book that got me out of it as well. And then I'll also give you a flavour of what's going to be on the channel in the week ahead. Now, given I'm still not feeling very well, I'm not 100% sure I'll manage to get all the videos I'm going to talk about filmed, but hopefully I will. Anyway, in terms of reading then, so the first thing I finished this week then was Osgood is Dead by Cooper S. Beckett, which is the 4th in Cooper S. Beckett's Spectral Inspector series of books. So I really like these books. I made a video about the first 3 books a while ago. This is the 4th. I would say if you haven't read any of them, I would start at the beginning. I would start with the first book because there's a lot of kind of character work and, you know, kind of knowledge that you take into the 4th book that I think without that knowledge I don't think you'd enjoy it quite as much. They're just really fun books though. So as the Spectral Inspector title suggests, these are basically occult detective style books. So about this woman, Prudence Osgood, who is like a ghostbuster basically. So she has in the past had a podcast where she investigated spooky goings on. In these books the stakes get higher and higher as they go on. This book was really interesting. So it's interestingly structured as well, in that the first third of it is very different from the rest of the book. It's effective, it works very well, but it is very different. And I'm not going to go into why it's different because I think that will be a bit of a spoiler, both for this book and the preceding book in the series. But it does work well. So you've got a kind of weird opening to the opening section to the book, the first kind of quarter third of it, and then it ramps up into more of a traditional occult detective style of story with Osgood going up against this demon character effectively. So some really good horror. One of the things I think Cooper S. Beckett does really well is tap into that sense of like technology from our recent past being a bit weird, that sense of like kind of weird TV shows you've caught glimpses of, or you know, strange adverts you kind of half remember from the past. There's a load of stuff like that in this book, which I thought was very effectively done. Prudence Osgood is a great central character as well, kind of proudly queer, but also like really interestingly self-destructive. So quite an amusing character to read. She's very funny at times, but you also really root for her and you want her to overcome her demons, both the literal demons that she fights in the book and her own kind of personal demons. Really good cast of supporting characters as well, including her mother, who's kind of appalling, but kind of people who work with her in her like Spectral Inspector team as well. So just a really fun horror novel, genuinely creepy at times, very funny at times, quite moving at times. I think Cooper S. Beckett is doing a great job with these books. I really do enjoy them. After that then, this is when I was starting to feel like my reading mojo was fading, so I needed something really easy. So I read one of the Goosebumps books. This was Monster Blood by R.L. Stine, which I think was the 3rd of the Goosebumps books, so a very early one. Really weird and very silly. So about these kids who in a junk shop find this tin of something that describes itself as monster blood, which they managed to persuade the shopkeeper to sell them. He initially doesn't want to sell it to them, which should have been a red flag. And it's got like this weird green goo inside, which causes the main character's dog to massively increase in size. And It's definitely not my favourite of the Goosebumps books. It was even sillier than a lot of them, and it didn't have the kind of fantastic twists and turns that some of the Goosebumps books have. But it was still a very fun read, and definitely what I was in the mood for at the time. And then after that, I read a phenomenal book. So this was the pick for the CriminOlly book club this month, and it was A Kiss Before Dying by Levin. So this was Levin's first book. I think he was only 24 when he wrote it, which is insane because it's incredibly accomplished. Came out in the 50s, and it's a book that would be very, very easy to spoil. So I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but I'll tell you how it opens. So it opens with this couple, a guy and a girl, and the girl is pregnant, and the guy is trying to persuade her to have an abortion, basically. But it kind of spirals from there, and you very quickly realise that actually he's tried to kill her. And from there, the plot develops in a load of different ways, which were constantly surprising and delightful. I really didn't expect, like genuinely didn't expect some of the twists and turns that this book took. It was very, very gripping. The central villain is a phenomenally well-crafted character. Otto Penzler wrote an introduction to the edition that I read, and he compared the book in that to Strangers on a Train by Patricia Highsmith. And there's definitely a vibe of like Patricia Highsmith's kind of sociopath type characters in the central villain of A Kiss Before Dying. He's definitely got a Highsmithian feel to him. But yeah, a fantastically tense and enjoyable book. I was literally on the edge of my seat reading it. It definitely got me out of my reading slump. So I picked this up after having tried, as I said, 3 or 4 things and just not getting on with them. But I was gripped from page 1 by this. Absolutely masterful work. Just a great work of suspense. I think it won a bunch of awards at the time, and I'm not surprised. It was just phenomenal. And it's interesting when you think about R. Levin's career that he ended up, none of his other books are like that. None of his other books are, this is, I suppose nowadays you would call this a domestic suspense type book. None of his other books are like that. Rosemary's Baby is a kind of religious horror book. The Stepford Wives is a science fiction book. He wrote a bunch of very different types of book, but all with that, fantastic through line of suspense in them. And A Kiss Before Dying definitely has that. So yeah, strongly recommended if you haven't read it. And he didn't write that many books. I was surprised when I looked that he was involved in a load of different things. He wrote a lot of screenplays and like TV things. He wrote music. He wrote plays and things like that. But did only actually publish like 6 or 7 books, many of which clearly are very, very well known. So yeah, this was one I hadn't read, and I definitely recommend it. Okay, in terms of what I'm currently reading then, so 2 things on the go at the moment. One of those is a horror short story collection, My Dreadful Dreams by Hokunani Sorci, and I do hope that I'm pronouncing the author's name right. So this is a horror short story collection. I've only read the first story so far, but that was really good, so looking forward to continuing with that. And then, of course, it is this weekend, the Wasted Weekend, the Garb August Wasted Weekend, where I ask people to just try reading a trashy book and see how you get on with it. So the one, as I've said before, that I am reading for this is Promotion Tour by Terry Harknett. So Terry Harknett, probably better known as George G. Gilman, which is the pseudonym. Terry Harknett was his real name. So as George G. Gilman wrote the Edge books, which I've talked about on the channel many times. In fact, my very first video was a review of the first Edge book. This is a book about the paperback industry. So Terry Harknett, as Gilman, wrote for New English Library, who also are the publishers of this book, and was part of the kind of paperback boom in the 70s of, people like churning out fairly exploitative, cheaply written, cheaply produced books that were designed to appeal to the masses in the way that in that way that I love about trashy fiction. So this is a book about that industry, and it's actually really good so far. So I'm nearly halfway through. It's about an American author who's come over to the UK to promote his new book, and he's kind of like a Harold Robbins style author. So a kind of an author of kind of salacious dramatic books, if you like. So he's come to promote, I think it's his 3rd book, and the publishers expect it to do really, really well. They've got a really big print run lined up for it, so there's a lot riding on its success. and he's come over and he's hanging out with this English guy he knows, who I think works for the publishing company, but they have like a prior relationship, and it's just about him being over in the UK for a week promoting this book. But it's really good. It's actually like genuinely quite gripping at the moment. Some interesting characters. It's got a bit more room to breathe than the Edge books. So the Edge books are typically like 120 pages, something like that. This is 250 pages, and Harknett is spending a bit more time like getting into character backstories and things like that. So it's very much, it's got the vibe of like a Harold Robbins book, and it's about a Harold Robbins style writer. So it's definitely an interesting read, and I'm enjoying it a lot. So that's what I have been reading. That's what I'm reading at the moment. In terms of channel stuff then, so as I say, I'm not sure quite how many videos I'm going to get out this week. I do have a load of books to show you in a book haul, so hopefully I will do that. I have 2 huge boxes beside me here. This is one of them. There's another one which is slightly smaller but much heavier, which very kindly sent to me by Heidi, one of my patrons, which are a mix of books and snacks. So I'm probably going to do an unboxing video of those to show you those. And I also have a book subscription box that's been sent to me by the company A Box of Stories. This is going to be an exclusive, an exclusive box for CriminOlly subscribers, CriminOlly viewers. So this month, the next edition of this box, I'll explain it when I do the video, but basically it will only be available for this round of subscriptions. It will only be available to viewers of the channel. So I'm quite excited about that. So hopefully I will get my unboxing video for that done as well. And also a review video of The Reformatory by Tananarive Jew. So yes, that's what you can expect in the week ahead. Anyway, I will leave it there. Hope you all had good reading weeks. Hope you are enjoying the wasted weekend if you're taking part in it. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.